Hello, everyone. Welcome to Courageous Custody, your weekly dose of empowerment and practical guidance. I am Renee Rodriguez, the creator of the Custody Blueprint.
And I'm Achara Tarfa, a trauma-trained Level 3 internal family systems practitioner. And Renee and I understand the unique challenges protective parents face in the courtroom. Our mission here at Courageous Custody is to equip you with the strategic thinking and emotional support that you need to navigate this difficult journey with strength and with resilience.
So every Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern, we're going to go live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, bringing you inspiration and insight from stories about courageous parents who have walked in your shoes and emerged victorious in big ways and small, and practical strategies from us to help you advocate for your children and manage your trauma as you go through your custody case. So let's jump in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just a reminder that we are not giving legal advice or therapy.
Nope. And if you are feeling triggered, we want you to take care of yourself. Maybe step away. Join us again in the comments.
We are very close to Christmas. We're going to continue with our, using tech in the courtrooms. And so today our topic is how to use video recordings in your custody case. Last week we did audio recordings, and this week we are going to focus on video recordings.
Yeah.
Now, video recordings is, in a way, there's a lot less to say about video recordings, largely because it's usually not really allowed in. When you always have to make sure, as we talked about last week, that you're following the laws in your state or province, your district or territory. And we'll just, drill that down to your jurisdiction. And what we know is that it's very, very rare that video can be used in your jurisdiction. But we had started last week talking about reasonable expectation of being recorded and discussing that with your lawyer. So when it comes to recording laws, again, as we said last week, if you're in a one-party consent state, it means that as long as one person in a conversation is aware that there's a recording, you can record. Nobody else needs to know you're recording. So that does well for taking notes. It does well for recording your co-parent when, they're at an exchange behaving in a certain way. If it's a two-party recording state or all-party recording state, it's almost pretty much the same thing for our intents and purposes, which is to say that everybody who's part of the conversation needs to have consented to being recorded for that conversation. And video, while, audio is much easier to be one-party consent. With video, it is actually rarely allowed, but that reasonable expectation has to do, as we talked about last time, with the fact that pretty much everywhere you go, it's ubiquitous that you're being recorded by store cameras, parking lot cameras, and people's dash cams and doorbell cameras. And so with that reasonable expectation of being expected to be recorded, it goes against the reasonable expectation of privacy, right? So it's kind of like, well, the privacy situation is not a debate we're going to get into today, but for your, for our listeners' intents and purposes, you just have to find out if video recordings are allowed and if that reasonable expectation of pretty much being recorded wherever you go could allow something that you're recording to go in. So you just have to talk to your attorney about that. Right. But when we are video recording, I want to pause real quick and talk a little bit about provoke and record. Provoke and record is a technique that abusers have started using, especially over the past, I would say, about 3 or 4 years now. We've had more and more of it where we've got, a protective parent who just basically, doesn't talk a lot, really stays calm. And what happens is the abuser keeps needling at them, whether they're still living in the same household or doing it at, drop-offs or something like that, until finally they catch the protective parent on just a bad day, a bad moment. Right, Achara, where it's like finally they feel this injustice coming up. They find their voice, and they start basically yelling at or even going at and pushing away the person who is starting to come at them. And that's exactly when the abuser whips out the recorder and records. right? And so we don't have what comes before, we don't have what comes after. What we have is a raging mom. And the courts are happy to look at that and say this person is a danger to their children. And so it's really, really important that no matter how much you're being provoked by your co-parent, that you assume that they are either always recording, whether it's legal or not in your state, and that they're ready to whip out something and record as soon as you start to finally say to them what you've always wanted to say to them, but which will now be used against you, right? There is that moment when you agree, Achua, where it's like, this is my moment to I finally find my voice. I've been with this person. I've been walking on eggshells. I'm away from them. I'm protecting the kids. I'm just going to respond to this.
Yeah. I mean, in our mindset calls, we talk about having a sense of agency all the time.
Yeah.
Like having a sense of agency is a good thing, but there is a timing and there is a place and there is a way in which agency can, show itself, so to speak. And, agency burdened by rage is not a good look,
It's not. And it all is part of a setup, right? And I think on our protective parent side, when they are trying to put together effective video evidence, I think you really are where you're allowed to. You want to keep recordings focused on the issue at hand. These long rambling videos are going to be less effective. Also, this is true of audio recordings, it's true of video, it's true of all recordings, all tech of any kind. You've got to have date and timestamps. Right? You've got to have the date there too. Sometimes we'll get people with timestamps from their audio or video recording. And it's kind of like, well, what day though? And it's no longer admissible, right? It's no longer quite usable. It's easy to impeach. And so it's important that you have the date and timestamp, and that it's clear who we're looking at. It's clear who it is, right? Otherwise it could be anybody is what they come back with. And then, as we mentioned last week, do not edit the video. Do not edit the video. If unfortunately you have said or done something that isn't flattering to you, that video, almost no matter what you've captured about, your co-parent on it, is probably not something that you'll end up using, right? So you can't tamper with it, you can't edit it, and don't worry about collecting a whole bunch of nothing, because you can direct the court to a timestamp for what you want them to review, for what you're saying is relevant. And we talked last week about, secure storage. So we would invite our listeners to go back and listen to our how to use audio recordings in your custody case for, the storage tips there. A lot of people are kind of like, well, how am I going to get my video evidence? Well, we all know what the most obvious video recorder in the world is to be using, right? It's your smartphone. And so bring that out. It's the most readily available tool. So you always want to make sure that that is charged and ready to record any sort of interactions, right? But the home security systems, we had talked about the Blink cameras, or any kind of cameras that you've got that you want to have indoors, cameras outdoors, especially if you're feeling unsafe. You have to pay usually in order to subscribe to them actually keeping the footage versus just having the monitor, right? Because if you just have the monitor and you're not recording, then you can see what's going on, but there's no recording of it. And so there's usually a pretty small fee, but it is per camera. So I know with Amazon, with their Blink cameras, it's $3 a month, for example. Fine, but when you've got 5 or 8 cameras, you have to multiply that all by 3, because each camera is its own footage, and so it starts to add up. But considering the evidence that you can get, that would be good. Nanny cams, hidden cameras of any kind, again, as long as they're legal. Dash cams, we spent some time talking about last week, and how that will not only capture audio, right? Because dash cams are not always going to see what it's capturing, and so dash cams are useful for audio. But where dash cam is getting what's relevant that you're capturing over video, that can be very good as well, right? You can also be recording in public places, because that is generally legal. But again, you just have to think about privacy concerns. And then social media. This is why we tell our moms to stay off of social media, or use a nom de plume, which is to say, we have seen a lot of our clients, we've seen social media come up in a lot of cases, both for our clients and against them. So be aware of that, but look for stuff that you can use in court as well. It's so important that this stuff is presented in a way so that it's not thrown out, objected to, and then unusable. It needs to be introduced. You have to be able to talk about when, where, and why the recording was made and how it relates to your case, right? And you have to submit it with transcripts. It might need to be certified legally based on your jurisdiction. And then, with any recording, with any evidence you've got to have copies for the court and the other party, and usually well in advance. Make sure that you're meeting the deadlines, make sure you know the deadlines and that you follow the court procedures for it. And keep in mind that if there are other court professionals involved in your case, sometimes you need to have the evidence, copies of everything for them as well. So a guardian ad litem, for example, a friend of the court, somebody who's working on your case might also need it. And just remember, the other side is probably going to contest the video's admissibility or authenticity. So you have to be ready to show you didn't tamper with it, you didn't edit it, you didn't trim it, it was legally obtained, and it's the whole thing from start to finish, right? And you've got the transcript. I think when it comes to taking video, and I find this to be even more true with photos.
Okay.
We have a lot of our parents who are kind of like, when my kids show up, they're showing up in clothes that are too small for them because my ex knows that I'm going to put the children first. And so I'm going to put them in clothes that are current for them, that fit them. And I'm going to send them out into the world that way. And so it is my ex's way of never buying clothes, because every time I dress my children in clothes that fit them, they come back in clothes that are too small and I never see the other clothes again. And this is my ex's way of just never, ever paying for a thing. And some people would argue, well, they're paying child support, but usually in most jurisdictions, both parents are expected to have supplies for things for their children to be there, right?
Right.
So this is a way for a lot of, moms will say, there's even some outfits I really loved, or a t-shirt that was from a trip that they had with my dad, and my dad bought it for them, and now it's gone forever and they say they can't find it, right? So I think when you're taking pictures of your children, whether they're coming back with a bruise or a cut, when you're taking video, it's so important that they don't understand what you're doing and why. And so usually what we tell our parents is, take the recordings and have a reason for it that makes sense, and make that reason be true. If they're coming back with a gash and you're taking a photo of it, it's very easy these days to say, now let's get in there and make sure there's no dirt in there. We're going to take a picture so that we can zoom in and make sure that there's no dirt or anything in it. It's nice and cleaned out. Right? Or we're going to take pictures to watch how it's healing. It's very interesting scientifically, right? Whatever it might be. I think it's the same thing with video. If you're taking video, there needs to be a reason, because we don't want the children in the middle. We need evidence in order to protect them, right? We're not just sort of taking videos of our children to try to weaponize them. But when there's proof of something that will help protect our children, yes, I say you've got to capture it. But your children cannot know why I am vehement about this point. The children should have no idea that you're going to be using this in some way, even if it is to protect them, right? They can't know what is happening. And for, sometimes when moms say, well, I always tell my children the truth. I think that I agree with that up to the point that it's age appropriate. You know what I'm saying? I think it's not about our children must always hear everything that's in our minds that is the truth. I think it's about what is age appropriate for our children to know. And I personally feel it is never appropriate to put a child in the middle of a custody case. And so if you are gathering video evidence, I don't think your children should be aware that it could be used against their other parent, no matter how much they don't want to be around that other parent. Many of them still do want to be around that other parent.
Right. And going into more of these sort of another sort of avenue of these ethical considerations sort of around, doing this work around with our kids present. Our kids, their brains aren't fully developed, so a protective mom or a parent may think that they're explaining something to their child, like it's a teaching opportunity, or those messages are not for kids. Those are not kids' messages. So any of the things that are going on in the divorce or the high conflict custody battle, None of them are kids' messages. Even if you have an older teen who's still
Right.
trying to talk to you and explain to you that they get it, and those messages are not for them either. I don't care how much they think they know, because
That's right.
teens think they know everything anyways.
Yep.
It's really important to understand that there's a term called interoception. And what that term is, it's really just defined as the perception of the internal signals from the body, whether conscious or not. And so that's going all the time. And when we bring up stuff like this, whether we think that, people are doing it for positive intentions, of course, there's still sort of this somatic response that can happen in a body, whether conscious or not. And we don't want to add, right? We don't want our clients to add anything that can activate something already existing in their child's system already. We want our protective parents to be the safest place possible. So I love the example of, let me check and make sure that there's no dirt in what's in here, right? Let me check and inspect your shoe. It looks like it's got this rip or something here. Let me just see what mommy can do to fix that up. Like, not, oh my goodness, your clothes don't fit you. Let me get we don't want to say anything.
Oh, you came home dirty again.
Yeah, nothing like that. Nothing like that.
No.
So having, some being aware, right? Having an awareness of subconsciously stuff can happen and occur in our nervous system. So again, to prioritize self-energy and make sure that when you're stepping into these situations, I'm doing this with positive intent. I'm doing this from a place of, I can turn this into something that's fun, right? It doesn't have to be this teachable moment. I don't have to, never, ever do we want our clients in positions where they can be told that they were coaching their kid. Right. That's just not something that is helpful for them. So having a space of self-energy and being calm and compassionate is always going to lend to the situation and not take away.
And there's still truth to it. If you're taking pictures of, matted up hair, and you zoom in, it's kind of like, okay, I've got it. I think I understand it. Let me get the comb and try not to hurt you as we get this out, right? You're following through. You are being truthful for the reasons you're doing it. It's just that there's more than one reason, right?
There is more than one reason. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think, it's so important also. This happens to our protective parents where the other parent walks around with a GoPro camera all the time. That's intimidation and harassment. So we would never advise our protective parents to do that. Making it obvious to the world that you've got them on lock, that every move they make is not okay, right? And it's also not okay to take these things and use them, as harassment or anything over email, which our clients' exes usually do. But we ask that even in moments of frustration, that our protective parents don't say, maybe I can get them to stop, or maybe I can put them on notice. It's kind of like, it's weaponizing, and the other side will see it as weaponizing, with some exceptions, but for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it.
That is it. That's what we've got to say. In combination with last week's audio recordings, this week's video recordings just takes that laser focused look at that. Thank you so much for joining us, whether live or on replay. We're so grateful to have helped in any way that we may have. Great takeaways for this week. Again, just make sure that what you're doing is legal. Make sure that you're submitting stuff that's relevant and is following the way that you do need to submit it. And look at all the different sources that you can legally use to get some video recordings.
Yeah. Next week, join us again here, 7 p.m. Eastern, same time. Like or follow us or bookmark us so that you can get the notifications, because what we're talking about may come at you right when you need it.
Yes, and we're coming into Christmas, and then we'll be starting Hanukkah. So happy holidays to everyone for whatever they may be celebrating, and Kwanzaa as well. But, leave those comments below. And wherever you're listening, remember you're not alone. Until next week, stay strong, stay informed, enjoy your holiday, keep fighting for what matters most.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.